episode is brought to you by A3, a CMMC cloud-based collaborative environment for an organization seeking certification, otherwise known as an OSC, to build CMMC packages and share with a marketplace of consultant RPOs and assessor C3PAOs. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of 123 CMMC. My name is Dana Mantilia, and I will be your host. And our guest today is Paul Natopsky. Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing great, Dana. How about you?
I'm doing very, very well. Why don't you take a little minute and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Great. So Paul Natopsky, I'm the founder of Critical Prism Defense. I do cybersecurity consulting for defense industrial-based companies. Cybersecurity consulting consists of a variety of different disciplines, but you can do security assessments, what you may see for like DFARS compliance, or what will eventually be like a CMMC compliance once that gets figured out. I also do like NIST 853, which is a risk management framework. And I also do cybersecurity engineering services, primarily for products that are delivered to the government as part of a contract, so robotics type of systems.
Okay. Well, we have an exciting topic today. We're going to talk about diagrams. So our first question is going to be, well, what is a diagram?
Well, a diagram can be anything you want, right? Everyone likes to doodle and draw pictures, but a diagram is really just something to help a reader understand what it is that you're trying to communicate with them. Or it can be the other way around, where you're using it as a writer to help with organizing some of your thoughts, so you can write to the diagram. So an assembly of pictures arranged in some sort of manner so you can communicate your topic to them.
All right. So what are some examples of something that you would draw out? What do you think you would?
When we're talking about IT and cybersecurity, some of the things that we may want to draw out would be decision trees. Like we want to figure out what is the workflow and which direction should we be going depending on a question. We may do business processes just to find out how we interact with each other and internally with a company and figure out where we need to go from there. Might do network diagrams for IT equipment. We could do wiring diagrams, which would go like another level down and show exactly like what port something may plug into. Even organizational charts is a type of diagram, and that's usually pretty helpful as well. That's a couple samples of what you can consider for diagrams.
And they're obviously helpful because, first of all, they help you organize your thoughts when you're putting it together. And then also, which we're going to get into in a little bit, is when you have to explain something to somebody, then you can both kind of walk through, step by step, how this gets to this, and it lays it out in a much clearer picture than just verbally explaining to somebody.
Yeah, some people they need that visual representation to understand what you're communicating. So, if you are going through like a security assessment, you don't just want everything written down, because some people need that visual indicator of what it is that you're trying to explain. So you want to try to tackle both ends. You want to have a good write-up and you want to have good pictures to help communicate your subject.
So you just mentioned a decision tree. So can you just explain to everybody what would be an example, or what is a decision tree?
Sure. You can say it's, if this happens, then I want to do this. So, you may go down a decision tree like, okay, I have a subject I want to communicate. What should I do next? Maybe I have to go reach out to my network. If I find someone in my network, then I schedule with them. If I don't find someone in my network, then I would go over and advertise or look for someone else to help communicate these subjects to people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then what everybody's going to be wondering is, how do diagrams apply to CMMC?
Yes, so you probably won't see anything directly in NIST or CMMC to say you have to have a diagram depicted for everything, but it does say you need to have some sort of understanding of what your scope is. So for me, I like to write my scope, especially if you are making an enclave or a subset of your network that will apply for CUI. You want to draw those pictures out, show where your borders are or your accreditation boundary. You can also show where your ports, protocols, and services interact. So ports, protocols, and services would be like how a computer connects to another computer and communicates across that link. And then just your facility boundaries. You may have a facility that just has a room And that room is where you're going to contain all your CUI. So if you draw that in your picture and all your computer systems in that picture, it'd be helpful. Or you may be spread across multiple buildings, multiple states. So showing those interconnections between all those buildings would be very helpful. Also, when you do write up processes and procedures, it's helpful to have decision trees, flow charts, data flow diagrams, how CUI is coming into your organization or leaving the organization, because that'll all help with figuring out what your scope is and how to start writing all of your policies and documents for it.
Steelroot, a national leader in helping companies in the defense industrial base with CMMC preparation and federal cybersecurity regulations. Big or small, Steelroot is here to help design, build, and manage IT. The Steelroot reference architecture is a secure, cloud-native operating environment built on zero trust principles. Steelroot also provides managed cybersecurity, IT, and virtual ISSO services. Visit steelroot.us for more information. And one thing that you just mentioned, which is really good, is this is not just going to be something, the diagrams are not just going to be an IT thing that the MSPs are going to put together. We can do diagrams for lots of things. And you just brought up a good one, the physical layout, the physical security of where things are. And so that's when we need to remember that it's not just going to be the MSP that's going to deal with all this stuff. There's other things like the org chart, like the decision tree, like the physical thing that we can use for diagrams. And I highly suggest that people use them as much as they can, because I think it helps simplify things, which is what I'm all about, helping to simplify things.
Yeah, especially when you're working, like you said, with a third party that helps with your internal organization. They don't have that insight into how you guys operate. So giving them any sort of diagrams, organizational charts, or contact lists is always going to be helpful. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they can help with the network diagram and stuff, but it's going to be a back and a forth where you're both going to need to communicate to each other. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so when is Data CUI? The big question.
Yeah, so this is going to be very dependent on your organization and the information that you are developing. But there are different parts of when something becomes CUI. You may have some intellectual property, like you're making these videos, right? It becomes your intellectual property. You may talk about subjects in there that may have some implications of the Department of Defense, right? It doesn't mean that it's CUI then, but if you were under contract to start developing these videos, you may, and you have to tailor these for the government, it may become CUI afterwards. So there are decision trees that you can make, and data flows that you can make, and diagrams that can help you determine when something becomes CUI. And then when you determine that, that's when you can start determining what you need to start developing as a scope, and then putting your protection measures around it. It depends on your contracts. So you have to start at the beginning when you get awarded a contract. Look through your contracts. Who gets to keep the intellectual property? What kind of laws and regulations apply to the data that you're creating for the government? So when people say like NIST and CMMC is all a cybersecurity issue, it's not. It's a real business issue that needs to be tackled, for the whole business.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole business, not just the IT. So I always say, well, this was really, really helpful, because, I think diagrams may be something that people don't necessarily always think about, and always think about all the different applications that you can use them for. So thank you for explaining all that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. There are a variety of tools out there too that can be used. I like to use the Microsoft Visio product. It is a paid product, but there's a reason why you pay for it. It does have a lot of great features and interactions. But I also want to remind people that sometimes the information that you're developing is sensitive. So if you use those free online tools, just remember where that data is getting stored, because you may lose the rights to the diagrams you're creating if they go up on those free platforms too.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Well, thank you. Is there anything else you want to throw out there before we go?
No, I appreciate you having me on the show, and I look forward to some more too.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you very, very much for your time. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. And we hope to see you on the next episode of 123 CMMC. Take care till then. Bye-bye.